now by the one and only, I would say, QPR's most famous football fan. I don't know. I would say so.
There's a few famous. Mick Jones goes down there a lot, but I haven't seen him for a little while. Robert Elms. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was having a cup of tea at half time with Mick Jones, and there's this quite good looking girl was sort of looking over at us, and we thought we'd been spotted, and sure enough, she came over and she said, "Excuse me, are you?" And we thought we were going to say, "Is that Mick Jones from the Clash and Glen Matlock from the Sex Pistols? Are you sure or not if that guy behind you is Bruce Welch from the Shadows?" And we looked round and it was Bruce Welch from the Shadows.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I'll rephrase that. QPR's most famous, coolest football fan, I would say.
Oh, well, there you go. All right, I'll have that. I'll buy that. So
I cut you off in the middle of your cool story as well because I thought I've got to hit the record button, so we'll need to get you to start again. You're walking around the corner shop to get bread. When was this?
No,
half an hour ago?
45 minutes ago. I was going around the corner and get some bread because I actually, this is very punk rock. I defrosted my freezer over the weekend because I couldn't open it, and I'm slung it all out, restocking it. So I've got some bread to put in, sliced bread you put in, and if you run out, you can always toast one. And there were 2 local older gay guys on the corner chatting with some woman, and Paul Weller was talking about hair cuts, and there you go. So the woman seemed to think that me and Paul had gone au natural with our hair and not having it dyed anymore. And I just said, well, it's cheaper, basically. So there you go.
So Paul Weller's a local. And it's interesting because, Weller, massive Pistols fan.
Yeah, he was, but he didn't have to play it cool, though. No, I like Paul. He's sort of getting all right. We've been locked down coffee on the corner chums for the past year and a half when people haven't been having a go at doing this, that and the other, either successfully or unsuccessfully. Yeah. But anyway, there's gigs on the horizon, and I've got a gig in Belgium, and I've got some shows, and I was just trying to see how I can get from one to the other. And I thought, I'll go to Belgium the day before. See, this is the life of a self-employed musician. I thought, we'll go to Belgium the day before because we're playing at 1:30 in the afternoon at this festival. And then I just realised I've actually got a gig the night before near Gatwick. So I'm like, so I don't know how I'm going to get around that, but I will. But it's like, hurry up and wait, or wait and then hurry up.
It's good because, as you said, the gigs are on the horizon, they're right around the corner, and there's a few around about the UK. Now, I looked on the site earlier, I know that there's still ones kind of penciled in, but you're going up and down the UK, and it's Glen Matlock solo acoustic, am I right in saying that, or have you got others with you?
No, I'm going to do some solo shows. I've got about a dozen that's being added to solo shows. I'm going to tell you when I'm in Scotland, but I haven't put them up online yet because I was trying to do it all in one fell swoop. Not very new UK gig offers, except I spelled it NEE, N-E-E. I don't know why that is.
I hope you played Cowden Beef, given that you mentioned it before we started recording. I really hope so.
No, it's not Cowden Beef, but where am I playing? Right. I am playing Dundee on the 1st of December at the Beat Generator Live, wherever that is. 2nd in Edinburgh, Bannerman's.
Good venue.
And I think they're going to try and add some more to that. So that's the 2 Scottish ones for the time being. But there'll probably be a Glasgow one as well. And there's a little gig that I do sometimes up there in Forfar, actually. There's a club, is it called the A1 Club or something? This guy's got a private camera. So maybe I'll do that as well. So, yeah.
So tell us what your memories are playing Scotland. I don't know if I told you this before, but I seen you play on the 2007 tour with the Pistols in Glasgow. Now, you've done tons of gigs, obviously, with the Pistols on both the reforming tours in 96 and 2007. I don't know if you remember individual dates. The 2007 tour was a kind of smaller one, if you get any recollection of playing the Glasgow SEC show. But what memories have you got playing in Scotland? It doesn't have to do with the Pistols.
It doesn't have to do with the Pistols.
Could be either.
I don't know. I actually did a solo thing at the Edinburgh Festival about 5 years ago now. I did a week in the Spiegel tent in George Square, I think it was. That was fun. So I did like a spoken word and story. And I hadn't really done it much before. And I was the first night I was sort of struggling to do my 45 minutes, and second night was an hour, and then towards the end of the week they're sort of dragging me off. I kind of got into it. That was fun, and there was all stuff going on in Edinburgh, and I was with this young lady and who was coming to do the merch for me, and she was American, and the first night we went into a local pub and a bloke recognised me, and she was like, the barman, and kind of went down well. But yeah, I've always enjoyed playing in Scotland. Played there with the Rich Kids. We did that place above Glasgow, Satellite City, I think it was called. It was right up the top. That was like Midge's homecoming at the time. That was a mad kind of show. Aberdeen I played. Where did I play? What's some place? Arbroath once. That was a bit of a rub out. But there was not a lot there. We played a festival with the Pistols near some lock. It was really muddy and it was pouring down the rain. What was it?
2008. Yeah, it was live at Loch Lomond 2008. I was there during the day.
Yeah, Loch Lomond. It was. Yeah, it wasn't Loch Ness. It was Loch Lomond. And I do remember when I was up there with the Pistols, when we went to meet Midge, not with the Rich Kids, when we went to meet Midge. We went out for a drive and drove up towards Fort William Way and had a paddle in Loch Ness just for the hell of it. And I went, oh, it's got me. Right? And Rusty went, what? And I said, it's a monster. And he went, oh. And then we drove back a different way, like through the, I don't know, it wasn't really the Highlands, but back to Glasgow. Then we was running late, was going to meet Midge, so there was a phone box in the middle of nowhere. And I went in to make a phone call and somebody had graffitied Sex Pistols.
Oh, that's cool.
Not me. And we played there in Dundee at some teacher training college in 76 and stayed in quite a nice hotel on the banks of the Tay. And we got the overnight train up and got there in time for breakfast. They had a fantastic sort of fishy breakfast, with smoked haddock and kippers and stuff. And all of a sudden, Frankie Vaughan came in with like a bevy of beauties for breakfast. What had he been up to? I don't know, but it's kind of funny. There's us, the fledgling Sex Pistols, and there's Mr. Gimme the Moonlight. He didn't have his poser on, but it's funny when you're touring. There's loads of other people with all different stripes. Sometimes you bump into rock and rollers, and sometimes you bump into kind of pretty odd kind of people. But I remember being in, it's either Dublin or Belfast with the Rich Kids. We were staying in some hotel out of the bar, we played. Then we got back to the hotel and there was a late night drink going on. And there was Andy Stewart was there, pissed as a fart, marching up and down the thing, singing Donald, where's your trousers, with his trousers around his ankles.
Oh, and that was in Ireland.
Funny,
Listen,
I also remember when we went to see Midge, he had some quite high level manager, Frank Silver, I think his name was, who had offices just off of Socky Hole Street. And one of his other newer signings sat in on the meeting. And it was Billy Connolly. Nobody had heard of Billy Connolly. Well, you might have heard of Billy Connolly up there then, but we hadn't down there, and he was quite funny. So the meeting with Midge, his manager, me, this guy Al McDowell, who was our manager at the time, and went on to become an artistic designer in Hollywood, did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and was over here recently art directing Star Wars 9. Me, him, and Billy Connolly. It was funny.
I guess Billy Connolly's quite the musician. Maybe this was around at the time he was with Jerry Rafferty. They had that duo thing on the go.
I think it was probably just after that.
Right.
And I think he was probably just thinking about being the comedian that we all know and love. What was that called? The Humble Bums or something like that?
Yeah, Humble Bums, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, see, I know my... Anything up to 1973, I'm all right. I'll get a bit lost after
that. Especially with your Scottish heritage. I'm going to combine the two things we were just talking about. We mentioned football briefly, and we've been talking about Scotland. There's a little bit of a Scottish contingency that's found their way to QPR. Lee Wallace, I don't know if he's getting a game just now, the left back, and Lyndon Dykes up front.
The thing with the Rangers, by the end of one season, I know all the team, and then in the summer holidays, they change it, and you spend the rest of the season learning it all again. We've got Lyndon Dykes, he's Scottish. Yeah. He's pretty good, although he missed a couple of sitters on Saturday. I've got a season ticket. I'll go with my son. We're going tomorrow night against Everton. We was there for the pre-season friendly, and we beat Man United 4-2, and we was winning 4-1 at one stage. I fortunately took a picture before they got any more goals back. But 4-2 finished. That was kind of good. Who else? And then we had some people who went to Scotland. Joey Barton, well back, he ended up playing for Celtic, didn't he? I think.
He went to Rangers. He didn't have such a successful stint, yeah.
Well, he's a bit up and down. And there was another defender, I forget his name, he was a bit of an old steamer. Played for them. Clint Hill, yeah. Yeah, but I don't think either of them was Scottish. Yeah.
No, but we've got Lyndon Dykes. Like I said, he nearly scored in the game where Scotland beat England 0-0 at Wembley. Just there.
Oh, Clint Hill? No.
Lyndon Dykes. Like I said, he was very close to scoring. Even though it was 0-0, in Scotland we celebrated like we beat you at Wembley. You know what I mean? 0-0 was a victory to us, you know?
No. There you go. I never understand why Scotland struggle though, because you have Celtic and Rangers do quite well and getting the European Cup and stuff. And I don't know, perhaps it's because they have more foreign players, which is the same as in England.
Yeah, there's a lot of foreign players. Plus, the league isn't so strong, but individually there's some great players like down south. Obviously, Andy Robertson doing really well, plays left back with Liverpool. Kieran Tierney, Celtic player, went down to Arsenal. I know Arsenal are in a bad run of form, but he's a great player. But I've been following you on Instagram and seeing that you're a fan of the old QPR, the Rangers. Talking of Instagram, the very first time that we spoke, I remember you saying, this social media thing, I'll never be able to get my head around it. But you're on there now, you're on Instagram, a lot of people are liking you, you're verified. How are you enjoying the old social media?
Well, it's kind of, it's just what you do, really. I like sort of trying to do sort of funny-ish kind of things sometimes, put a smile on people's face. If something comes up, I forward it. Somebody digs out some old picture that maybe somebody hasn't seen before, put that up. I like to have a little rail about what's going on in this country politically, which is turgid tripe. Yeah, and then also, if you do all those things, I suppose in my mind, and a lot of musicians, then when you do some shows, you just put them in and all, and you're already engaging with people. The only thing I find is when you put shows up, right, we're playing in Edinburgh, somebody writes, oh, you're not coming to Chicago, oh, you're not coming to Adelaide in Australia, oh, you're not coming to Seoul, like, and that's 3 out of your kind of 10,000 people who follow you. Yes. What can you do? All you can do is a little bit of everything, really, so that's what I do.
You do a little bit of everything. I actually found out the sad news through your Instagram about Charlie Watts, which is obviously is absolutely devastating news. Obviously, you played with Ronnie Wood. Did you ever get a chance to meet Charlie?
No. Do you know what? The closest I met Charlie, it was kind of funny. I never actually met him, but I don't know, 15 years ago, I went to see Bill Wyman's Rhythm Aces playing at this place called the Roadhouse in Covent Garden. And I wanted to see what he did outside the Stones. It's probably on the cusp of him leaving the Stones, but he had a great band. He had like Georgie Fame playing with him and other people, really, really good players. And I'm a musician, I like seeing good players. But when I was down there, I bumped into Bob Geldof, who I like, but it's hard to get a word in edgeways. And as we're chatting, I'm sort of trying to watch the show. They finished. Bill Wyman got off the stage and walked past us to go to the dressing room because it was like a big club. Geldof collared Bill Wyman. He said, Bill, great show. I want to introduce you to my friend, a great friend of mine, Glen Matlock. He used to be in the Sex Pistols, or you know. And the Bill Wyman went, I know who he is, which kind of shut Geldof up. And I'm sort of like scratching my head, like, look round, and there was Charlie Watts there anyway. To me, because he knew that Geldof goes a bit like that was it. But that was the closest I got to Charlie Watts.
So, continuing talking about drummers and mentioning Instagram as well, you put up a thing too, mentioning like your favourite drummers and everything. So, just generally, who are your favourite drummers, and what do you look for as a bass player in your other half of the rhythm section? What kind of qualities are you after, coupled with your favourite drummers? Somebody
you get on with, really. I think most people, when they get to a certain stage, can kind of play all right, and if you've got some kind of rapport with them, that's kind of good. There's people say, the best drummer in the world. I don't think there's any such thing. There's the right person for the right job at the right time. Charlie Watts obviously was for the Stones. I like playing with Kenny Jones is great. Chris Musto plays with me. He's pretty good. Like Slim Jim Phantom's a mate. Who else? I mean, I put some silly things up on Instagram earlier on in lockdown with drummers, but it was drummers who people don't necessarily associate with being drummers, and it was Stevie Wonder. Who else did I put up? What's his name? Sammy Davis Jr. and Patrick McGowan, who plays. There's a great movie I saw about a year or so ago called They Play at Night, and it's fantastic. It's set in Shad Thames, which is like old warehouse buildings down the side of Tower Bridge, and it used to be a real dump, and like these days it's high-end flats, for kind of yuppies and people with pots of money. I actually played in one many years ago when it was a squat, and there was squats there, and the guy, Andrew Logan, who was sort of on the scene before punk, he had a place there. We played there with the Pistols, and I played at another party with the rich kids. It's some off the wall kind of thing, when it was all squats. But this movie's set there, and in the movie, it's based on Othello. Richard Attenborough plays an art dealer who's got this swish pad over there, and he puts on a gig, and in it, Johnny Dankworth. Take five.
Take five. Don't tell me.
Dave Brubeck's in it. Charlie Mingus is in it. All these actors, and they're kind of like modern jazz people. And Patrick McGowan, he does a bit where he plays the drums, and he's really good. Yeah. And it's kind of I think he learned to do the thing, so I put a picture of him up. It's just a little thing to get people talking, really.
You mentioned Kenny Jones earlier, because I watched the thing earlier on. You and the Faces doing some TV thing, and you're playing Stay With Me, and you and him are just totally on it, you and Kenny Jones. So this is a great story. I've heard different versions of this. I want to hear it from you, how you got involved with the Faces, right? Because this is a band, if I'm right in saying, you're 12 and 13 and you're standing in the mirror with the guitar or the bass or whatever.
It was the band I used to stand in front of the mirror when I was maybe 14, pretending I could play, and I ended up with... Well, when I did the Rich Kids, we ended up having Ian McLagan came down to do a keyboard session for us, and me and him got on fine, and then he did a tour with us. Fantastic. It was a real scoop, and I got on really well. We were mates, and then I lost touch with him. And then I heard him on the radio, on Radio London. He was doing like a round table thing, and I know the guys there. This is many years later. And I called him up, and I said, look, give Matt my telephone number when he finishes doing the show. And he did. And I didn't think he'd call me up, and he called me up. And I was actually I was on the ferry to the Isle of Wight when he called up. And I said, well, look, I'm out of town, but let's meet up for a coffee or something, which we did a few days later on. And he was over touring, and but was living in Austin, Texas by then. I said, what are you up to? And he said, this, that, and the other. I said, what do you really want to do? He said, well, I want to reform the Faces. And I said, well, look, you know that I know that you know that I know that you know that I'm the right guy for the job. And he did. Then I said, put a word in for us. And it didn't happen immediately. And I was trying to get Rod to do it. And he was, and he wasn't, and he was, and he wasn't. And he didn't in the end. Mick Hucknall did it. But it was great playing with those guys, you know. So, but I was, recently, Ronnie Wood called me up, who lives round the corner. And he said, what you up to? And I said, not a lot. And he said, want to come and do some bass playing? And it's some sort of Faces project. So it was Ronnie and Kenny. Ian McLagan's not around anymore, sadly, but Jules Holland came down. And then Rod was supposed to be doing something to it. But what's happened to the stuff, I don't know. And I played on 4 or 5 tracks. So we'll see, you know.
This little band and this little estate of yours, that's quite a band. You could have yourself, Paul Weller, Ronnie Wood. You know, it's all there.
Well, yeah, could do. Yeah, I don't know.
Throw it out there. You could play with Paul Weller. That'd be cool.
Do you know what? I've never played with Paul Weller. It's funny. He was going to come and play some guitar on my... I've just made a new album, which is going to be coming out early in the new year. And I invited down for that, but we wasn't doing any live recording when he was available. And then I kind of did it. And then he asked me to play on something, and then I wasn't around when he was around. So he did it. Yeah, something will come up some stage.
Yeah, that'll happen. Actually, do you remember I texted you because I threw out some questions, or I said to everybody, listen, what questions have you got for Glenn? We're talking tomorrow, so what do you want to know? And one of the questions was actually regarding Paul Weller. I don't know if there's any truth to this. John Wood was asking, is it true that Weller knocked Sid Vicious' tooth out? Is there any truth to this, or is this nonsense?
I don't know if he knocked his tooth out, but I wasn't there, but I did hear that Sid was winding up Paul about how much the Pistols' new song, after I left, I must say, sounded very much like a Jam song which had come out first, and Paul was having none of it, and he landed in one. So there you go.
Well, there's still time for you and Weller to write a song about it in this new band. Who knows? But there you go. Just continuing with the fan questions. Then the Centre, who's a great singer-songwriter up here, has said that a lot of artists over a period of time, when they have a kind of long career in music, at some stage will maybe fall out of love with music and kind of lose their enthusiasm for it. Has that ever happened to you, or has it just been a consistent...
It comes and goes, you know. I mean, I've got some shows coming up. I'm thinking, oh, blimey, I've got to do some shows. But then when you walk on stage, you're into it, you know. So, and then by doing shows, you think, oh, when's the next one? Yeah, it comes and goes. It's when you're on the crest of a wave and it's all going well is one thing. If you feel you're struggling, which I do feel I'm struggling a bit. I mean, what I did many years ago, I'm known for, but I've done many different things since then with varying degrees of success. And I think there's some of the stuff's pretty good, but people always want to hear the old stuff, you know.
Does that bother you, or is that just that comes with the territory and you're proud of that? How do you kind of feel about it? Does that come and go? It's kind
of galling sometimes, you know. And then what gets me is that, you know, I know people want to hear certain songs, and I'm not going to tell you which ones, but you know, if I went to see Bowie and he didn't play Heroes, I would have gone home disappointed. So there's certain songs you feel you have to do, and I kind of don't mind doing them for the people there in the room at the time. But these days, everybody bloody well films it, and it goes up on the internet, and it looks like that's all that you do.
Right.
And it's annoying, you know. And then also, you know, you do a gig and you got a set list, somebody next to the set list, the first gig of a tour, you know, and you want to surprise people.
Yeah.
And then they put it up on the internet. I mean, I actually write to them and say, mate, look, keep the set list, you got it. Take it down, please. You're spoiling it for everybody else. And they go, oh, sorry, I didn't really think. But imagine what it must be like for a stand-up comedian.
Good point.
You know, you can't have. Earlier on in lockdown, El Slick got stuck with me. You know, one of the very last shows I did last year, it wasn't the last one, that was 100 Club. We played in, what's that club? In the Bungalow in Paisley.
Oh, yeah.
We played there and then came down and I did the 100 Club the next night, which was a bit of a drive, and I got a fucking speeding ticket and had to go on the speed awareness course right in the first part of lockdown. But what was I saying? Yeah, so anyway, so we did a few sort of Facebook Live things, you know, weekly ones over the course of a month. But then, of course, you can't do the same songs every time. So you've got to learn like 4 hours worth of material. So a stand-up comedian, if somebody puts his joke with a punchline up and he's got an hour act and he's got a 10-date tour, he can't have 10 hours worth of different material. I mean, maybe some of them can. Maybe somebody like Billy Connolly could, but maybe somebody's just starting out with it, and it spoils it. So a lot of people in life these days don't think it through. I mean, look at the Tories.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
No, it must be pretty difficult. I never thought about that regarding the old stand-up comedy thing. It must be really, really hard for those guys, especially just one gag gets out. Because, you know, if somebody puts up a video of you playing the Sex Pistols, at the end of the day, people are still going to go to that gig and they're still going to enjoy that. Albeit you don't want to run in order of the tracks, but a stand-up comedian, that's a routine done and it's going to get no laugh at all. So you're absolutely right. It's a good point, you know.
Yeah, so there you go. So until you've been there, you don't know these things.
Anyway, a lot of people were kind of, and talking of that because I often think like the amount of time that the impact that the bands like the Pistols had was astronomical. I can remember again the first time that we spoke, I'd said to you that, listen, Noel Gallagher had said that he would trade all of his studio albums, maybe he's done like 10 or 15 or something like that, whatever it is, he would trade all of that to have Nevermind the Bollocks as his album. He says that's that band's one statement to the world, and that's just great. Now,
well,
for my generation,
I always thought he was a bright lad.
So here's the thing, right? I can remember I told you that a while ago, and I says, "What do you think of that?" And you'd said, "Well, do you know what? As long as he pays me the royalties, right?" And I just thought, right, okay, I'll just move on. But looking at that band, they've just they're releasing a film, Neb, you know, about their Nebworth gig in the mid-late 90s, whatever. And that's the biggest band of my generation by far, right? By far. And huge Sex Pistols fan. He also said in an interview, I don't know if you've seen it, like a couple of weeks back, that, you know, what song would you wish you'd have written? And the first song he said, "Oh, Pretty Vacant," without question. But you, I know you're laughing and joking there, but you must be really proud of that.
Yeah, you know, I wish I'd written Waterloo Sunset, you know, so we all do that. I'm annoyed with Oasis, though. Do you know why? Because they brought in this whole baggy look, right? But I think it was only because I was a bit too daft to realise that you used to be able to get pretty much anywhere in men's, gentlemen's outfitter shops, jackets that come in short, regular and long. And because they brought that in, it's really hard to get the right length sleeve now. It's all the sleeves you get for orangutans, and then you got to have it taken up. And if you have a jacket with nice buttons on it, and they take it up from there, it's wrong. And then if they take it up in the shoulder where they're supposed to, if the bloke don't know what he's doing properly, it spoils your jacket. Bloody Oasis.
And one of them's got a clothing line as well. So they're, you know, you're not going to see the end of that.
No. I will tell him though. I see him every now and then coming out of Tesco's.
Oh, really? I tell you what, I need to go and hang out in this area. When you say him, is that Noel or Liam?
No.
No. Okay. I think he's great, like a brilliant songwriter and everything. But I love the fact that he's a big Pistols fan. I think that's great, and he always says good things about the band and
yeah.
And the songs and all the rest of it.
We like people who like us a bit, you know. So
yeah. And talking about acts that you like, I don't know if you were familiar, whatever. I always heard that I'm a big fan of the Sensational Alex Harvey Band.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Right. Okay.
I served them in Malcolm McLaren's shop once. They came in, and I had to throw them out because Malcolm thought they were tax inspectors, believe it or not. I had to make them go to the pub and come back again a bit later on. Chris Glenn, the bass player, he used to buy his Dayglow socks from Malcolm McLaren's Let It Rock Teddy Boy shop. And I went to see him a lot. I saw him from like playing Greyhound in Fulham, which was a pub with maybe about 20 or 30 people there. I saw him at Kensington Town Hall when there was 13 people there. They got raided by the police, and me and my mates had to leave to get the last bus. And by the time we'd gone down the stairs and they'd gone up with their truncheons out, there would have been more police than audience. And then I saw him at headlining. They'd had a hit with Delilah by then, and they was doing Hammersmith Odeon. Saw him at Reading when I opened up with Faith Healer for the first time. Yeah, I liked him. I played good. Saw him at Marquee when they brought out Big Bud McKenna's brass section, 10-piece brass section. Did I Just Want to Make Love to You, which goes on for 7.5 minutes. Yeah, a big Alex Harvey fan. And they was one of the few bands around, like the Faces, maybe the Spiders from Mars, T-Rex, Dolls, Alex Harvey Band. And there was something about them. I think all the Pistols liked the way, there was Alex and Zal and Chris Glenn sort of just stood there, sort of staring people out. We kind of sort of picked up on that a bit.
That's great. I mean, I can't believe that I haven't spoken to you about this before, because I'm a gigantic Alex Harvey fan. The drummer Ted McKenna taught me drums since I was really wee, and Zal Clemenson. We were in a band called Zal Clemenson Sin Dogs.
You was in Sin Dogs, okay, right?
Yeah.
I never actually saw them. I kept missing them, but yeah, it was a good player. In fact, I took when they did Alex Harvey without Alex, with that guy who was Mr. E or whatever his name was doing it. I took Chris Spedding down to see him, and he didn't really know that much about them, but he thought, yeah, it was pretty good. But Spedding did tell me that Spedding was in the stage musical Hair in the orchestra pit.
Well,
and his dad, for when he didn't do it, was Alex Harvey. Played the guitar.
I know he did that. It's phenomenal. I'm so glad that you're a fan. Zal Clemenson, what a guitar player he is.
Yeah, it was great. He pulled all the right faces and all.
I pulled all the faces. There we go. I tell you what, I can't wait to send him this. Because that's uncanny.
I remain Zal. You was a big part of my youth, so there you go.
Oh, you'll be thrilled, because again, we talk all the time, and I'm sure he'll be delighted with that. But no, a great band. I can't believe you've seen them at Red, and I've heard so much about that. Ted told me the story, which I can't say on a podcast. I'll tell you another time about the story, what he did the night before he headlined the Reading Festival. So I'll get in trouble if I tell the story of Ted McKenna sadly no longer with us. But I will tell you off here. When you're in Scotland and I buy you a latte, I'll tell you the story, right? But no, I'm delighted that
I will hold you to that, yeah.
Absolutely. Right, okay, going through a bunch of stuff here. We're covering so much, it's great. I want to talk to you about Carol Kay, right? Now, this is my claim to fame. I've been in Carol Kay's house and I've played her bass, right? Because I interviewed her and just can't believe it. And this is somebody I worship. You're a fan of Carol Kay, right?
I'm a fan of Carol Kay, and I'm a fan of James Jameson as well. So, and in my mind, they sort of covered most of the sort of top pop music from the 60s and onwards. Yeah, so.
I remember there's a guy called Cam Malone, who's a brilliant bass player from up here as well, played in Aztec Camera. He said to me, listen, he told me when I was 17 or something, he says, have you heard of Carol Kay? And I said, no. I said, you don't know anything. You need to go and listen to Carol Kay, because she's on everything. And again, when I read that you were a Carol Kay fan, I thought that's great. I thought I need to talk to you. We'd actually, if you want to, we should try and do a podcast, because she's been on here a couple of times. So we could try and get you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she can tell me a thing or two, so.
A Sex Pistol and Carol Kay on the same podcast, that would will melt the internet.
But I like girl bass players. I'd like Tina Weymouth's good. I used to there was a girl called Sarah Lee that played with the Gang of Four. She was kind of good. There's a few others and all, but I can't quite think of them. There's Simone who's in Primal Scream, but I'm a bit annoyed with her because I quite fancied that gig.
Did you not do a gig with them?
Pardon?
Not do a gig with Primal Scream?
Yeah, I did a thing. They're sort of mates of mine, you know. I sort of see Bobby out and about, and Andrew lives around the corner. I see him taking his kids to school sometimes. But when I was on Creation, they asked me to play on a track, and I played on Medication on the Vanishing Point record, I think it is. In fact, I got a gold record for that on the wall. Never paid me. It gave me a gold record. I could have done with the money at the time. But there was some last minute benefit concert at Brixton Academy 10 years ago now and more, for some, I think it was for Haiti or something. And they decided to do it, and Manny's mum had passed away and he'd already booked to go and let off steam in LA, and they asked me to do it, so I did it. And then we've done a couple of other things together since then. We had this band, we did one gig once, great lineup, me, Zach Starkey on drums, Andrew, Little Barry and Bobby. We did all covers, like MC5 and the Trogs and stuff like that. And it's like it's a band that will live forever, and it's got a great name, with the Silver Machine. Great. So we keep threatening to reform, but I know.
No, listen, I've got to ask you this, right? Because this is one thing I've kind of taken a mental note of, and I thought I'll need to ask Glenn this. Is there any truth to the fact the Sex Pistols playing at Caesar's Palace? Is there any truth to this nearly happening? Them contacting you?
No. What happened was in '96 when we reformed, we had to think of somewhere to do a live album, and Steve Jones had, I thought, a fantastic idea. You know, and he likes Elvis and all that kind of swank kind of stuff. And he suggested we recorded live at Caesar's Palace. So imagine the Sex Pistols live at Caesar's Palace and all the great graphics. And we contacted them, and it's like the mob, and they didn't want us. And there's some telegram somewhere that says, no, we do not want you, and please do not recommend your friends either. You know, it isn't, but it's almost like the mob, you know. But that would have been great. Sex Pistols live at Caesar's Palace. And I went up many years ago, and I thought this was a great idea when we was trying to think of different places to play. I said to Malcolm McLaren, this is like early 76, why don't we play at the Talk of the Town? Like Sex Pistols. And Malcolm went, no, yeah, no. You know, and I don't think we could have quite pulled it off of that stage, but it would have been a great one to do Sex Pistols live at the Talk of the Town.
Oh, brilliant. Give us an encore that you mentioned Malcolm a couple of times, like controversial character. Was he a smart guy?
Yeah, he was some kind of saw himself as an agent provocateur about this, that, and the other. Yeah, but when he was in with Malcolm, he was in with him. When he weren't, he was out. So I got mixed feelings about him. But you know, I don't think anybody would have heard of the Sex Pistols if it wasn't for him. But I don't think anybody would have heard of him if it wasn't for the Sex Pistols. So we had like quite a symbiotic relationship. Well,
listen, Glenn, it has been phenomenal, as usual. Absolutely brilliant. This is part 3, and it's part 3 of many, because we've got more to talk about. We need to do a podcast, and you heard it here first, everyone. I'm going to try and get Glen Matlock and Carol Kay in the same podcast. I'm also going to try and get Glen Matlock and Zal Clemenson on the same podcast. How do you fancy that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm up for that.
So you can find glenmatlock.co.uk for all the up-and-coming tour dates, the UK and perhaps beyond. Check out glenmatlock.co.uk for all of that information. And as I said earlier, Glen's on Twitter and Instagram. You'll see the Instagram right now if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on all of the platforms, at Glen Matlock, digit 1.
Yeah, and Facebook as well. So
absolutely.
I try and cover every angle, but I don't understand what TikTok is. I thought it was the noise that the clock made. So
You'll be on that the next time, I'm sure. Thank you very much, Glen Matlock.